realize that when you study for the lab test, those are the things you need to be able to identify by name, know their prevalence, and know just the rudimentary function. And then the next thing that you're going to do today is look in a blood smear. So in AMP1, you looked at blood, hopefully, and just know there's connective tissue. But now you're going to look at it a little bit more closely. Now you're going to look at the white blood cells and the red blood cells. You're going to try to identify the different white blood cells. This is how you would do a differential blood smear, it's called. And I think I went over and lectured a little bit about how that's actually done. You take a drop of blood, you put it on a cytometer, you know what volume you have there, you count the cells. You can actually work backwards to get a cell count from that. But it has to start off with you being able to identify the white blood cells. So use the numbers. The prevalence that I gave you is actually a big key. When you look at a blood smear, most of what you see in there is going to be red blood cells. The vast majority of what you see are all red blood cells. Then you see those little purple staining ones. Well, those are the ones that are stained with hematoxylin, so they look purple. So all your white blood cells appear purple. The vast majority of what you find when you look at white blood cells should be what cell type? Should be neutrophils. Yeah, most of what you see in there, the white blood cells, will be neutrophils. The next most common type should be lymphocytes. Okay? Neutrophils and lymphocytes are going to make well over 95% of the white blood cells that you find in there. Okay? Neutrophils are dead easy to identify. They've got granules and they have a string of pearls-like nucleus. Their nucleus has these lumps, okay? And there's a tiny little thread that runs through them. And even frequently the nucleus even looks like an N. It'll go up and down like that. So that's really pretty obvious. You can find those. Lymphocytes can be a little confusing because depending on whether they're mature or immature, the nucleus shape will change a little bit. But lymphocytes tend to be small, and they have a very dark, round nucleus. Okay. They're small and compact, and the nucleus takes up almost the whole cell. That's a lymphocyte. The thing that you could confuse a lymphocyte with would be possibly a macrophage, which is this guy here, or a basophil. Okay. And there's a little mnemonic that I learned somewhere along the way. Basophils are big, lymphocytes are little. Okay. And that, if you're getting to that point where you're confusing those two, that's what you use. Okay. Basophils are big and obvious. Basophils, in my experience, well, first of all, they're really hard to find. Right? They're less than 1% of the total white blood cells. So frequently, we'll have a room full of 24 kids, and out of all of them, maybe one or two find a basophil. So when you do, I say, hey, you found a good basophil, let everybody else see that. Okay. If it shows up on your test, it's complete luck. Right? I have a couple questions on the test where I'm going to put some slides on there, and if I sit down in 5 minutes and find one, I put it on the test. If I don't, it's a neutrophil, it's something else. So it really just depends on how lucky you get when I'm scanning for cells. Likewise, eosinophils. So here's another stumbling point you run into. Neutrophils have that highly lobed nucleus, and they always have that. Eosinophils also have a lobed nucleus, although not as highly lobed as a neutrophil. Eosinophils have bright red granules. Neutrophils have slightly red granules. Now, if you looked at enough histology slides in here to know that they vary from slide to slide. The quality of the slide is not always the same. Okay? So we get stain variations in our slides. So you may look at a slide that was stained very intensely with eosin, in which case the granules and the neutrophils look bright red sometimes. So if you look in there and you're like, oh, I think that's a eosinophil, and you see 20 of them, it's not an eosinophil. Okay, that's a neutrophil with just really bright granules. So then you have to scan around and you have to find one that's even brighter. And you find one that's really bright, you compare it to the less bright, and you're like, okay, now I get it. So you kind of have to gauge on the slide. You have to find a neutrophil. Be sure it's a neutrophil kind of based on its prevalence and the shape of its nucleus, and kind of look at those granules. A great slide, the granules are kind of just like they look in here, almost a purple red. They're not real bright. In which case, when you scan across one of these and it looks like a neon sign, you're like, okay, that's pretty obvious. I'll be honest with you, this is probably the trickiest microscopy we do in here. It's subtle. Okay, not the neutrophils; those are easy to find. So on the test, I always put one dead easy one on there that's easy to identify. And then if I find one that's a little more challenging, sometimes I put that on there. But really, there's pictures on Blackboard already of these things. I could take some more. I can put those up there, and you can practice. You can take some of your own. There's pictures in your book. There's really no reason to not be able to identify them with just a little bit of practice. And then the third thing I want to do today is blood typing. I want to talk about how to do a blood type. So that I got to go up there and lecture for a little bit, and I'll be done.
before you ask, no